do I want to do today? I heard that some of you are interested, and some of you, of course, know my work. So I hope this won't be too boring for you, but it's maybe also a different perspective still. So I would like to talk about my project that is, where can I start the presentation? Yeah. That is FERMATE, walking and falling, I called it. I will tell you later why. And it's, yeah, the communities or the collectives that I'm thinking about are the more than human collective bodies. And actually, I have to admit that I did not start out with that question, but this is where I sort of am at the moment. But what did I do before? Why did I start to do this? And what am I doing? This is the network of an image, a depiction of the network of mycorrhiza. And mycorrhiza is the network between fungi and plants that enables life on Earth, as in the life that is here on the planet, like on soil and not in water. And I've been busy with the idea of mycorrhiza since 2014, when we created the first of our apparatuses. And the apparatus label took its name from Karen Barad, who's the successor of Donna Haraway in California, at the University of California at Berkeley, no, Santa Cruz. And she is not like, unlike Donna Haraway, who comes from biology, Karen Barad comes from physics, and she's talking about apparatus as any kind of situation where something comes into being that is perceivable. And she's taking that notion from Niels Bohr, the physicist, and it comes from the description of experiments that change through people, different people conducting the experiments. So any actor, as Karen Barad puts it, any agent in the situation changes the situation and brings it into being. And this, yeah, is valid for human and more than human bodies. And the first apparatus was dealing with the network of mycorrhiza in order to take it as an inspiration for artistic work and for questions of how can we work together. This was after I had worked at the HOW for a longer time as a curator, and the whole economy of this system is very much thinking about import and export and showing and telling. So you're showing something and you're selling it, and you never have the chance as an artist really to meet up with other artists and share experiences. And so I was looking for examples of collective bodies in what we call nature, which I always say is our culture. And for me, I always say that too. Also, plastic is nature, but I can talk about that a little bit later. And mycorrhiza is very interesting as in the fact that there is a shared economy. So fungus are not able to do photosynthesis, but of course plants are. And the mycorrhizal network can transport information from one plant to the other. So we know, meanwhile, that the plants are connected with each other, not only through a root system, but also via the mycorrhizal network. And basically, there is tissue that is shared tissue between the plants and the fungus, where you never know whose is whose. So it's not the economy of I'm taking this to mine and I'm taking this to my body, but it's very much about like a whole system of plants, fungus, and other bodies co-creating as an apparatus, as you could say, for example, a forest. And a forest is a collective body that has intelligence of its own and has even a personhood, as I would say today, but I didn't know that in 2014. In 2014, we invited people into the Heights House in Berlin, in Ufer Studios in Berlin-Wedding, to work together for 7 weeks in a shared space. No rehearsal times for individuals, just a shared space. Figure out yourself how you're going to work together. And that was not easy. And we did that again with the topics of dirt, pharmacos, pharmacon, and pharmacos. There were students involved from the school, former stage and costume designers, the label UN, the group is UN. And also later on, we created Ferment Mutterkorn, and in this Laila Nabi was involved, also a former student from the school. So I always like to invite students into my projects too. So this is like before, and it's very important to understand my take on collectivity and some kind of like work that is done in a group, because any work that is done in a group is done in a group of human and more than human bodies, from my perspective. So that's a background a bit to what I then started on August 18th, 2020, and what I called FERMATE. And I will say something about the name in a second. And basically, it was first of all the idea to go to Vandana Shiva, to India. This was my semester of research, so I didn't have to teach, and I wanted to go to visit Vandana Shiva in India. Vandana Shiva is also a very interesting figure, who is like a big fighter against Bayer Monsanto, and she says that who owns the seeds is in charge of life on planet Earth. And I wanted to learn from her because she has these schools that she conducts, and she also talks very much about small farms and how it's possible through a very different kind of agriculture to still be feeding the world. But then there was COVID, and I was not able to do that. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do then? And then I decided that I was just going to do this kind of a research with people. Then I thought with people, not thinking of other than human people, beginning in my surrounding. So I have, this is the FERMATE sign. This is the FERMATE comes from music. It's basically a break that you, or a tone that you hold as long as you wish to hold it. You've seen it maybe in the score. So the waltz, the wandering, the walking, Wanderschaft in German, is a very old tradition of craftspeople. Actually, the English translation says it all because it's a journeyman. So it's not a journeywoman. And it's the idea of somebody who went through an apprenticeship and then they go out into the world and they're not allowed back into the place where they came from. So they're supposed to keep outside of that for a radius of 50 kilometers. And then you go for at least 3 years and 1 day. And then you go and you are not allowed to accumulate a lot of money, but you're allowed to accumulate knowledge, and you're also allowed to share knowledge. The other way around, porcelain, for example, they're not going on the waltz. They're keeping their secret. They're not allowed to share it. So, and of course, women were not allowed in, but they were allowed very late, but now they are. And it's very interesting as a coming of age thing. And as I'm 54 now, and 2020, I was 52, it's a coming of age of a different kind. And I'm also like creating my own rules because I'm going back and forth. But I decided the time of 3 years and 1 day is going to be the time when I will be in this apprenticeship, and I'm an apprentice of the soil. And what am I walking? So I started to walk from, I have a house on the countryside in Brandenburg, northeast Brandenburg. So I walked from there to Dresden and then to Leipzig. And I didn't walk any further so far. I will tell you why in a bit. And then I will walk to north of Augsburg, nearby Donauwörth, where my father was born. And then I'm walking through the Rhön, where my mother was born, to Kassel, and I was born in Kassel. So it's 1,400 kilometers in total, and I have 3 years and 1 day to do it. I will probably prolong it. So why did I do this? I took it very much from Gertrude Stein. Gertrude Stein was as bored in theater as I have frequently been. When you're a curator for an independent house like the How, and you're supposed to invite a lot of shows, you have to see a lot of shows, and it's not always good what you see, and you have to sit through it. And I got bored a lot. And when I read Gertrude Stein in her text on landscape play, that she got really bored in theater and wanted this to be changed. And she said that a play should be like a landscape you're walking through. Then I thought, this is my cue. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to do this, and this is my research. I'm starting sort of like to see what happens to me if I go on this trip, if I go on this waltz. And then I did a lot of research on the English version of landscape play, and then German, it's maybe Landschaftstheater, Landschaftsspiel. Not that easy, actually, because the etymology in the different languages is very diverse. But I started out with thinking Earth is playing a game, shaping the land, bacteria are playing a game, shaping the land, and they're shaping the landscape of our bodies. Lynn Margulis, the biologist, she said that bacteria might have created us in order for them to be able to exist. Humans are playing games, shaping the land. There is a typo here. So Spiel is Old German for a dancing movement. So it's basically like also a performance. It's not only a game. And the play is Old German, connected to Old German Playern, and that's care. So that's very interesting, because for me, embedded in this kind of etymology, there is a lot of what I'm interested in. I've been working here, also in my lectures, in my Monday lectures, very long on the connection between culture and agriculture, and on the connection between theory and theater, and the turn that happened when theater came about in, or was invented in this form. I talked about this today also in my lecture by a tyrant in Athens. And I'm really interested in the economy that changed through change of agriculture then. And so I wanted to find out a little bit more about that. So this is how I started. So I created sort of like a very basic Kluft. So like it's the Kluft is what you wear, like a costume that you wear when you go on Wanderschaft. Yeah, so I got these pants, and I wanted to have something sort of like white, so that I would be visible in a way that is not just, you know, I'm walking here and people do contact me and say, oh, so what are you doing? You look like you're somebody on a waltz, but what kind of craft do you have? And obviously I don't have a craft. And the whole question, the whole question of crafts also comes very much from the context here, because this school, for the people who don't know the school, is very much, and actually I think most of the art schools are very much linked to crafts, while saying they're not. You have to be, you're studying visual arts, for example, but you have to know how to do it. But you're supposed to be free of that too. And there is like a contradiction in that. And when Till was introducing me, I'm from faculty 2, applied arts. And obviously everybody can come to me. But what does that mean, applied arts? So that's also a question that is inside for me. Okay, so here it is again. Yeah, I already said that, so here it's summed up. Obviously, for Gertrude Stein, the whole understanding of a landscape play was more a metaphor. It's like, I'm doing it, but she just meant there were the understanding of repetition. This is in German, so I have to translate it. To repeat text passages in order to create a different understanding of time. So famously, a rose is a rose is a rose is something that Gertrude Stein was very busy with, as a rose is maybe not a rose, it's maybe not a rose. And what does that mean in time? And to sort of like sculpture time through repetition in speaking in a specific kind of a way. That was what she was interested in. But I found soon enough that obviously repetition happens in what we call landscape as well. So it's the fields, it's forests, it's highways, it's the windmills, it's animals and stones. So landscape is, just like nature, part of our culture. And scape, in the etymology of landscape and also Landschaft, comes back from something that was constructed, that was made. So then I also established a Zunft, so that's like a part of a craft, so it's like a bigger thing now. You can join my Zunft now. And I'm busy with the questions of creating nature as a craft. So this is basically what I started to do then. I also started to an archive. So when like I walk, and I walk something like between 20 and 26 kilometers per day, not more, because then I'm too tired and I can't talk and listen anymore. And at each place where I spend the night, I collect soil, plants, sounds of anything, could be the windmills, could be what we call nature, and I am interviewing people. And I'm interviewing different people who I meet by chance or who I try to talk to because they're doing something that I'm interested in. They're farmers, or they're doing cultural work somewhere really remote, or yeah, chance meetings with people who are really happy to tell me their story, which is something that I was not expecting, I must say. I was very overwhelmed by somehow actually the necessity of people to speak, to tell somebody their story who's recording it. And in the beginning, I thought this was going to be like an installation and I was going to document it, but it's not possible because the stories are hardcore. Yeah, people have really, in the parts of Germany where I walked through now, there's like a lot of family histories that are connected to receiving land, getting taken away the land, somebody killing themselves because of that, re-receiving the land, being overwhelmed with work with the land, all of this. And so there's like really no easy connection to the land. And so I am unsure of what this will be in the end. What I found out the fastest though was I was thinking that I was going to like basically perceive a landscape play as I was walking through, but no, I am basically the performer, because once I enter into a forest or I walk somewhere and I have sticks when I walk because of my knees, Then animals warn each other, birds shout, pigs run away. And I felt extremely watched all the time. Not that I was scared, but I was actually feeling somehow like as a disturber, as somebody who doesn't belong where I was. And I realized that this is like, because I'm not walking beautiful landscape paths, but I'm walking this way that I'm supposed to walk because I want to get there. So I'm also trying to take the short routes because it's anyway long enough. So it's not really beautiful frequently. And sometimes I also end up in dead ends and I have to return and do something else. So then I also realized they are watching us the whole time. They are watching us. The trees are watching us. They are all watching us. They're listening to us. They're seeing what we're doing. And that was the moment when I started to think about a more than human public. So this is a public, this is an audience, people who are listening to us, because for me, trees are also people. A forest is also a person. And we are just neglecting their ability to listen and to respond and to communicate with us. So, you know that there's a saying, die Bretter, die die Welt bedeuten, in German. So the planks that mean the world in theater, they were not asked if they could be what they are also here, right? And we're pretending that there's no resonant bodies, but they are resonant bodies. And that is the big thing that I'm trying now to get further into detail with. Yes, I will talk about that later a little bit more. So the separation between nature and culture is the cosmology of Europe. And there are, of course, obviously other cosmologies that you could refer to. I'm trying to use the FERMATE project to found like a different cosmology. And what I'm now phrasing is the notion of a planetary theater as a medium for that. And this is the Wappen, what's that in English? I forgot the word, I know the word. So like crafts and also nations, they have like their signs. So this is the sign for the FERMATE that I created. It's the FERMATE, you can see it, but it's a little bit exaggerated because it's made out of copper and it is the Venus inside. So for me, human, more than human bodies, cosmologies, planetary theater, it's not only about the question how we are entangled here with the more than human bodies, but I strongly believe that we are very connected, for example, with the moon, obviously via water, we do know that. And other planetary motions that we don't really know about, that we are entangled with and that are part of the planetary theater. So Venus, and Venus is the narrative of Venus, and to be clear, the astrology for me is the cosmology of the astrology as we are narrating here is very much like a colonization of the sky via Greek-Roman cosmology that still is working today, right? Even though the cosmologies are a bit maybe outdated. So it's narratives, they're productive, it's an apparatus, it's not true, but it works. And Venus, I'm referring to Venus because Venus is very much, she's linked to, or yeah, they, whatever, is linked to copper in this narrative, and it's linked to desire. And I'm interested in desire as like a desire machine to create different kinds of realities. And then it's a root that is the other way around. There's a lot to say about that, and it's a moon. Yeah, I'm leaving it at that. So the landscapes that I walked through so far are very much embody the territorialization movements of different actors. So glacial movements of the Ice Age. Then, of course, very importantly, the lake that you saw earlier is a lake that was created in the area of the Lausitz. So that was it's a coal mining hole in the earth that they put water in. And then, yeah, all of these sort of like different bodies that co-create these places that I'm walking through. And of course, very importantly, mentioning Anat Singh here. Anat Singh wrote this book, The Mushroom at the End of the World, that was very inspiring to me from the very beginning, since mycorrhiza, since the project of mycorrhiza, because the fungus she's talking about is also a mycorrhizal fungus, and they cannot be cultivated. You need to forage them. You can't harvest like with weeds. And she's talking about weeds, and she's saying weeds like sort of cultivated us, because, and in a different text, it's not in this book, but I refer to this text very frequently, because we tend to, as humans, think, yeah, I'm doing this, but who is I? Is it my microbiome? Is it the bacteria? Is it the weed? Is it the coffee, you know, that got me addicted? Or what is it? And you can see all of this in the landscape and the repetition of the landscape. That is maybe very much like the way it's treated, the way we're treating our bodies. We're going over being tired, we're drinking coffee and continuously doing what we're doing, whether or not it makes any sense. And this is how we're treating like our bodies as part of the earth body and the earth body itself too. So this is basically where I was when I got invited to be part of an exhibition that Julia Schäfer curated at GFZK Leipzig, because she heard about the project and she curated as a final exhibition at GFZK. She curated a show with people who went outside of the institutions, and then she said, that's really interesting what you're doing. I'd like you to be part of the exhibition. Then she invited me to go look at the venue, because I had been at exhibitions, but still. And then she said, now, and you have here these two walls. What am I going to do with two walls? I'm working with performance. I have really no idea what I'm doing. And then I thought, okay, this is the wall outside. Then I thought, okay, maybe this is a moment for sort of like a landscape play or planetary theater. So create something for the trees and the nettle. And so then I started to talk to Maren Greinke, who is the theater painter here, to collaborate in creating paintings for these two walls, because I cannot do that alone. Then I started to work along the idea of a map, but found that a map is too colonial, and also it's uninteresting. I mean, it's interesting to show you now, this is where I'm walking, but it's not really interesting to show that. And what does that mean? So I decided not to do a map, but still work with the idea of a map. So in 7 days with 12 people, in the end, we created this painting. You can see me being an apprentice of my students who taught me how to paint something, because I have no idea how to do this. I mean, I can pull an image from the internet of an amino acid, which I did, which we then Maren found a way how to paint it, so that we would have it on the wall. And I got taught by Maren and the other theater painters how to do it. It was really hot. It was very exhausting, but it was great. And it's part of me being an apprentice of the soil, even though this is not soil color. This is later that I started to understand that I wanted to work with earth colors. And this is outside. You can see again the root of the Robinia, and this is how it ended up in the Wappen, because it's Robinia. that we created the play for, and we wanted to have something that is invisible but is part of their body, so the root. And it's a root that in the darkness with the color that we used, you can see it in the darkness, it glows after in the dark. And you can see the large Venus, the copper plate, that also creates a different light situation. And that was something that I wanted. First, we thought about electricity, but no, we used the copper. And then Felix Emakora created sound, so also former student, created a soundscape with soundscapes that I collected on my trip. That was hearable. And that's the inside. So this is our first map of FERMATE landscape play. And the walls as apprentice of the soil. You can see the Wappen in the middle. And so it has like a grid. So that's the understanding of the map. And it has the amino acid, which is the smallest part of life. And then it has on the left-hand side, you can see plants, depictions of plants that I collected. You can see my mushroom costume that I didn't talk about now, but that I will still talk about if I have the time. That is next to a first manifesto for planetary theater that I wrote there. I now wrote a second manifesto and I'm writing a third, which is a total book. And then there is Leipzig with the old map on the right-hand side to locate where we are now. And it's the Robinia from the outside brought inside. So that's what we created there. And that's the outside in the end. And you can see there on the right-hand side behind the glass, you can see the inside image too. So that was sort of like something that, like I started this research because I wanted to find out about the soil and about people working with the soil. And then I found out people are not only humans, but people are also trees. And then I found out that an audience is much broader than what I thought an audience would be. And then I got invited to this exhibition and all of a sudden I was a painter, which I'm not, but this is just to say, I'm also, I hold a PhD in philosophy. I start something and think about something in theory, and then I have to sketch it out and I have to sort of like stick to what I'm doing. And that's a large difference for me. The openness and the artistic research, really following, that's how I'm doing it, really following what comes to me and taking it very seriously and going in depth with that. What is happening to me? Trying to listen to that. So that's the manifesto, but yeah, whatever. That's a performance that I then made with a mushroom. I made 2 performances there, one for the opening and a second one at the very end. And so I was singing Every Breath You Take for the trees. And creating different choreographies around the house. And then there's the walking and falling part. And this happened to me.
I wanted you. And I was looking for you. But I couldn't find you. I wanted you. And I was looking for you all day. But I couldn't find you. I couldn't find you. You're walking, and you don't always realize it. but you're always falling. With each step, you fall forward slightly, and then catch yourself from falling. Over and over, you're falling, and then catching yourself from falling. And this is how you can be walking and falling at the same time.
Ja,
jetzt.
Sehr gut. Ja. Okay. So Laurie Anderson, walking and falling. So then after the exhibition, which was like a super peaky situation for me, because obviously I'm not a visual artist. I don't have exhibitions and I don't know how to paint and I actually don't know what I'm doing. But as I'm an apprentice of the sort, I'm doing what I'm doing. And I was really exhausted. And then there was the vacation that started and I have a dog and I walked with my dog on the countryside at this house where I started the whole Wanderschaft. And it was the Hundstage in hot summer. They're the days of the dog, and the days where in older times, but I didn't know that then, I read it afterwards, like in Roman times, they would think this is like really bad luck. You're not supposed to do anything during that time. And I walked my dog and the dog was young. And I went to swim in the lake because it was really hot and was 8:30 in the morning. And this is a preserved area, so I didn't think I would meet anybody. So I walked barefoot with my young dog and I had him on a leash and I had a long leash, 50 meters, and I had the leash around my left hand and walking with my boots and the right hand and the dog on the left, being in nature, thinking I'm protected, that's all good. And all of a sudden the car comes and this car passes us really fast, very close, like seriously, there's nothing. And the dog decided to clear the situation, barked and ran after the car, pulled me over, and then he dragged me along for another like 10 meters, like me. I weigh 90 kilos. So, and then my arm was really hurting and I was not able to get up. And I somehow knew that they would come back because I know the area and I know there's no way they can go. So they will come back and this is just going to happen again. And so they came back and repetition, right? They came back and I was sitting there and I couldn't move. I was sitting sort of like in the middle of this way. There's like grass, sand, grass, forest. And they tried to pass me and they couldn't. And then there's like these wheels, you know, turning in the sand and the sand goes up to my face. And they're trying to tell me that I should move away. And I'm not moving away because I can't. And I say, I'm hurt, help. And they don't help me. And then they pulled back and I have no idea where they went. It was like people in their 80s, people in their 80s. And I didn't, because I was so in shock, I didn't write down or take a photo of the license plate. But I did have a phone and I was able to call my neighbor and tell him where I was. And he came then to get me. And I wanted to put in the photo of what my arm looks like inside like the X-ray, but I forgot. It's also okay. I have titanium inside now here and 8 screws. And I was operated for 3 hours in order to get the bone back together. And that pulled me out of everything. So up until today, I was not able to walk again because I can't carry. Now I can, so I will restart the whole thing in January. But this is 1.5 years ago, and I was not able to carry 10 kilos, and I need 10 kilos. I'm carrying 10 kilos. So because I'm trying to keep it low, but still, you know, you need some things. And I was not able to do it because it hurts too much, and it hurts until today, and I will have pain for my whole life in my arm, which is, I'm not alone with that. A lot of people have issues like that. It's not about, you know, saying, oh, how terrible, la, la, la. It's about saying, I'm an apprentice of the soil, and this is also what happened. This is also what happened in the time, and I really try to make sense of it. Of course you can't, because there is no such thing as sense. There is an accident that happened, but I can create like a narrative around it, apart from me being too naive with a young dog and me not acting according to what I'm always talking about. I'm always talking about nature being our culture, and being deeply entangled with technology, with humans, with violence all the time. And what I'm doing there in the situation is I'm pretending that's not the case. I'm pretending it's cool, I'm safe, which I'm not. And I'm not because of animals. I'm not safe because of humans, which is actually something that I was frequently asked when I walk alone. People ask me, are you not scared? And I'm not scared. I'm just a little scared of men, honestly, in the forest alone. But it took me half a year to recover. I was not able to teach. I was just doing physiotherapy, rehabilitation. It put me on a completely different track. And then I started to think about titanium, titans. Why did we call this titanium? It's titans. It's again, Roman, Greek cosmology. Titanium can be like found in the earth, but it can also come from outer space and be here. So titanium is really interesting. So I started to think about that in time, and I wrote about that. I wrote a text about that, and the archive of my body that is changed now through that, but is also changed through me being on that Wanderschaft, because it changes the way I behave even stronger now in what we call nature, because nature is our culture, because we co-create the situation, and because we take as bad care of the nature that we call nature as we're taking bad care of our own bodies. And that's something that needs to change from my perspective. This is what I'm doing this for, basically. So then I was invited to be part of this Breaking the Spell, which is like a feminist project of different actors, and also the Leipzig-based residence that is connected to the theater there. And I was invited for 10 days in this kind of working situation with, I think we were 10 women in this case, female connotated bodies, whatever. And then I was invited to, or we were all invited to create a performance. And so I thought we need to do something against this imaginary border between nature and culture, because it's really very destructive in a lot of senses. And how can we do that? And so this is what I did. I invited people to bring a stone And then we walked, which was like something like a 15 minutes walk from the residence to this place at the Karl-Heine-Kanal. And I said, like, put a spell inside of this stone, how you wish to get rid of the border between nature and culture. And then in groups of, I don't know, 5, 6 people went here. And then I hope that I can play this. We did this. I get no sound. So it's like really stupid. We'll rock you. And then we're throwing it into the water. Yay! And then the next group. So that's a very stupid, small ritual that also is part of what came about actually through Wanderschaft and then through the accident as being part of my Wanderschaft, how I understand it. Because yes, I was not walking at the time, but I was walking at the time, and it's in the frame of the time. And I don't know if I should maybe stop it here, because I would start something new now, and we can also stop. I don't know how long you would like this to go. What time is it? 8. It's 8. Am I continuing? Am I stopping? Do you want to ask questions? Or should I give you another project that I'm doing out of this?
I'm curious to hear more about your project.
Hi, Ronja. Okay. You spoke, so it's happening. Yeah, so that's, as I started to think about planetary theater with the Wanderschaft, of course, I'm asking myself now, what is the planetary theater besides gravity, walking and falling, entanglement? What is it? What could it be? I have no idea. I have no idea. But I've been working with astrology for quite a while. I mentioned it before. In the way that I said earlier, for me, astrology even further is art, because astrology creates an image in the sky of something that is not happening, really. It's just what we pretend is happening through following the planets as we see them from here. No planet ever is retrograde, never, ever. It's just us seeing it as retrograde, and then we create a narrative around it, right? So for me, it's yeah, it's a narration. It's a very interesting narration, because it's basically the only real narration that we have that is outside of the planet. And this is something that I got interested in actually through the plants and Emanuele Coccia's book on plants, The Roots of the World. He's a philosopher, and he talks about, he puts together a lot of stuff that other people also did, like Michael Marder, for example, or Monica Galliano. And he's talking about how philosophy doesn't ever talk about plants, sort of super plant blind. And at the same time, the plants are doing something really important for us. They're digesting sunlight in a way that it makes it accessible to us in a way that we can eat it. I mean, it's not that we really eat sunlight, but of course we also digest sunlight in a different kind of a way. So then he writes in this book, he says, we need an extended kind of astrology that goes away from that individual astrology that is psychologically interested and is also very young, but goes back to looking at interdependencies of space as we know it is interdependent. It's an apparatus, as Karen Barat would totally say, because anything that changes something, right? It's a gravity field. And especially like in the close encounter with the moon, that's very obviously changing something. So the idea was to as I'm now somehow into painting, to paint like a radix, a chart on the ground that we pretend, or that was visible at some moment in the sky, or that we create as a constellation. Constellation is a very interesting word, between the different planets. So you see here the chart of a situation that in the end we did not use. That's sad, but we are working, and next Sunday we're doing the last one of this series for now. We were working with the colonization of the area where I have the house, which is nearby the Oderbruch, and it was colonized by the Christians in 13th, 14th century, and was taken away from Slavic people then mostly. And it was also, there is the Oderbruch, and the Oderbruch is a swampland. Swampland itself is really interesting. Swamplands, we were in Riga. Swamplands very important for the Earth climate, but there is like a huge swamp, a huge delta inside of Germany that was dried out, and the whole rich fish grounds were taken away, and the whole like indigenous culture that was connected to this kind of land that was a swamp was taken away in order to create agriculture. So we were working, we did 2 so far, and the first one was working with a village at the River Oder. Yeah, and no, I wanted to show you this. That's the first one we did, and it's like giving a village that exists, a Slavic village, as a present, as a gift to Christians. And we worked with that date and used the chart of that date, and we painted it on the ground. This is nearby the Oder, and I have birches. I'm the mushroom, the Kräuterseitling, and my partner is in the mushroom costume of the toadstool, and the mushroom costumes were made by Katharina Korb, who's an alumna of costume design. And the mushroom that I'm wearing, and I've been working with this mushroom since 2016, I found by accident on the hallway because she was exhibiting it in the summer Ausstellung here, and I fell in love with the mushroom and I had to have it. And I had no idea what I was going to do with the mushroom because I've been doing a lot of stuff with the mushroom. I don't know how long I will continue doing it, but it's a very interesting partner because if you do anything with this mushroom or with these mushroom costumes, people talk to you. People always talk to you. They want to touch you. They want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. So it's very low. It's like easy accessible for anybody because they're so Disney-esque, these costumes. And we're doing the drawing with it's like a yeah, you know what that is. It's from a soccer field, and exactly, it's also very funny, and that's also part of the thing. And then we're working with choreography. I'm not saying what that is. There needs to be something secret, and also with sheep, but only the wool, so no skin, and that is sort of like something that makes it stronger. And then we have the planets, and we made the planets are partly minerals that we bought, and partly I made them with stones and copper. Copper, obviously, again, the Venus. Gold is the sun, and silver is the moon. And yeah, so this is the second, the first moment. No, actually, of this series, but we started this earlier already. And then the second one we did because when it was dried out, the narration goes, the Oderbruch was dried out, the swamp was dried out, and then there is like this figure, the Odernixe, and it moved up to this lake, the Basi. And so we did, because it was dried out, and where was it supposed to go? So it went to the Basi. And so we did the second one at the Basi, but I don't have any photos of this, but this one we did with bands, and we sort of put the image between the trees. And it's very much a performance actually for the trees and for the plants. And it's also trying to leave the mark and see what happens with it later. And the last one we're doing in Bad Freienwalde, which is nearby there. And they're doing, it's a Moorheilbad, so they're doing this curing with swamp, where you sit in the swamp and you're supposed to be healed by that. And we're working with the chart of the person, Ashar is his name, who found the acid that is working as a healing. Yeah, they think that this is the healing part of the earth, but I find it interesting that the earth you're healed by, so apprentice of the soil again, but you're taking something that is very bad to take out of the climate, even though in small amounts, for human bodies. So there's like both sides to this story, and we're doing this one with light, so and sound, so it's going to be a little bit bigger, but I want to do a last one next year, like a larger one. With this was the one that we didn't use the chart of in the end, because there is this place where you can still see the old Oder. But then we didn't do this because there's terrible fish dying in the Oder, in the river Oder, that you might have heard of, and you were not supposed to get close to it. So we didn't do it, but I would like to do that next year, and then really work with different people, human bodies, more than human bodies, to co-create the situation with choir and singing, and like creating it larger scale as a final sort of recital maybe for that area, because it's completely changed. You have to imagine that until today, they're like pumping the water out of that area still every day, all the time. And it's just, yeah, it's such a loss of culture, I think. And so yeah, that's the other thing. And then we painted the Robotron Cantina with earth colors, and that's also part, obviously, for me, of the Wanderschaft. So it goes back and forth also between the teaching and me being an apprentice of people here also in the school, to be taught by students, to be taught by my colleagues in stuff that I don't know about, to be taught by people I meet, by animals who watch me when I walk. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your attention.
I'm curious about what you said with the personality of the forest, and yeah, could you elaborate more on that?
Yes. Yes, and I wrote these books also. But I'm leaving it in the thing, whatever. So we've discussed, Mia and I have discussed a little bit about Robin Wall Kimmerer. So Robin Wall Kimmerer is one source, of course, of that. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a biologist, and she's also an indigenous person in the USA and part of the Potawatomi Nation. And in the Potawatomi language, there is a very different understanding of in the grammar of personhood that is not only linked to humans, but also to plants. There is a completely different understanding of gender. It's very uninteresting in the Potawatomi language. They're not differentiating between gender, but between alive and not alive, right? No?
Even a bay is a person.
Even a bay is a person, yes. Even a bay is a person. Being a bay, being red, being a Saturday. That's the examples. Thank you. So by way of neglecting the status of person in our understanding here, we're neglecting the possibility to be part of, let's say, a public, which is also an audience, but also a public. So Öffentlichkeit. So public is always precarious, because even any kind of public, also the public that we're discussing here in Germany, is restricted. Not everybody, obviously, not every human body who pays taxes in Germany seriously is part of a public, for example, for theater or for museum visits. So the question is always, who do we grant the status of person in order to be part of a public, in order to be part of a collective body that is accountable for decision making. So a forest as a person, there's a whole law company who does these things, Client Earth. They're really working, for example, with things like creating a case for a river. I hope that they're creating a case for the river Oder, where they try to force different governments to acknowledging the person status of, and then the rights, because that's the trick. If a body has the status of a person, then they have rights, because this is how we define that. You could also use the different trick from my point of view, but this is how at least the European understanding functions. Did I answer your question, Anja?
Yes. How is the group called you were mentioning at last?
It's a law company, Client Earth.
Client Earth, okay.
Yeah, you find them, they're huge.
Nice. Could you also share the books you have in the room for the online room?
Yeah, I didn't even take them out of my backpack, but I will.
Okay, so they're not accessible for the others too. It's fine.
Eduardo Kohn, How Forests Think. Yeah, this is the completely different understanding of indigenous people in South America, who, as he points out, are not able to say this is the name of the tree, as like people coming from Europe would like to, but they say, yeah, but this is the tree, or this is the plant connected to It doesn't have a single name. Then I love this, Vinciane-Després. Anything by Vinciane-Després is fantastic. Read Vinciane-Després. Living as a Bird. She's talking about territoriality of birds who are doing this via sound, and only male birds sing. That's a bummer. Yeah. The Democracy of Species, Robin Wall Kimmerer, the small version. That's the chapter on language. Thus spoke the plant, the fantastic Monica Galliano, who worked on coral reefs. And then she's a biologist. She worked with a fish on a coral reef, and she was always returning, and she was like having this conversation with these fish, with these persons, and then she came back with a plan to take them away, to capture them and bring them to the laboratory. And exactly on that day, they didn't show up. And this changed her life. And this is Thomas Nail. Been using this lately, theory of the earth, where he talks about earth as a process, and not a singular body. Lotte.
Yeah, I'm a bit stuck still at this point of the non-human audience, like receiving the forest as an audience, and I was wondering, what did you learn from? Like you said, it was a new idea for you to have this erweiterten Publikumsbegriff, and that you. And then afterwards, you have translations again to spaces in Leipzig or Halle where you work with people again. Like, what did you learn from the relationship with the forest as an audience, and how can we transform this into relationships where you have an audience that is human again, and also not human, of course, but
Yeah. I think the first learning, or the first teaching I received from the plants or the forest, or also stones or whatever, like the being outside alone, I think that's crucial, because people kept asking me, can we join you? No, I mean, this is not happening, because if we go together, we converse and we chit chat, and it's just like, I need to be in a different kind of situation, and in order to perceive differently. So I think that's the main teaching is they're there, right? It's like, it's there. I really like to compare it with what Silvia Federici is teaching and Caliban and the Witch about Marx, the first accumulation, right? This is the taking away of the commons. It's the stealing of the commons, basically. Primäre Akkumulation is just a nice word for it. And for me, the primary accumulation, the first stealing that we're doing is that we're excluding more than human bodies from whatever we're doing, because they're always here. It's just a joke. So that's the major teaching. So basically there is no, for me, I think it's very much, they know, they listen. It's very much about working with humans and human bodies in order to find ways for us to listen better, to perceive in a different way, to get into at all a position of starting the conversation. And I'm not really further than that. I have an invitation now to work on a project in Burg Hülshoff. That's a literature place, and they do like a whole festival on commons in summer, and I want to do like a language creating thing with like trying to find, like, with taking the Potawatomi language or different. I've been talking to people now, there is so many differences in languages, and the way the grammar allows for different cosmologies to be embodied, because I think this is what happens through the speaking. It's performativity of language. We're creating that, we're co-creating. So like the language of saying Studentinnen instead of Studenten has changed over the last couple of years. We have other options of creating different languages, and that's something that I'm taking, I think, from the walking through the forest and then the reading that I'm doing. And that's something that needs to be done now. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, though, probably not. Lotte, did I?
Yeah, I didn't know what answer to expect, so it's hard to. I mean, if this is what you took, this is what you took.
Yeah.
Considering this, I'm creating new language. I was during your lecture, I was getting back. Also, just some weeks ago, I read the book from Bruno Latour, The Terrestrial Manifest. And in this book, as sure it gets clear that we all, of course, you know, and you proclaim it, that we all are a part in this journey, getting kind of like the sail right, to the right way to get interaction with the nature again. So I was wondering, like, this terrestrial manifest, like, also there, like, okay, sorry, two things, like the terrestrial manifest and the way you said with the participation of the audience, like you're acting with, and you're also like taking on a journey with you through, like, also the interaction with other people, with us as people, with like the human, sorry, with the human around these performances. So like with the in this terrestrial manifest, with the landing, like I also thought about, like, how do you deal with this issue, because like in this way we all on this journey, and how is there the interaction possible? Like, now it's a different way around. I should ask, like, did you get my question in a way?
No, I didn't.
No. Like with this, okay, talking about this landing, about this getting into the soil, getting into, like, your experience now from the walking, how is this getting back to the audience as a movement, and also as an involvement, like for us humans, for the audience in the moment you're acting, you know?
No, it's not. It's just not. It's not accessible for anybody at any time, all the time. It's not.
Yeah.
It's also not. It's not. It's. I think that's also a wrong idea. Yes, I'm writing a book, and so the book will be accessible for people who are able to read German, and are willing to put up with the stories that I'm sharing. But you know, it's like this is exactly for me a difference. That's also why it's my research that I'm doing in this kind of a form. And doesn't need to feed back into the loop right away. It does anyway. Right. Because I am totally convinced that we are super connected. So it does feed into the conversation. I would even say, even if I would not talk about it. Yeah. And just to say again, for me, nature doesn't exist, right? Nature is culture. Nature is something that is there and untouched, doesn't exist. There might be something that is untouched, but it's not what we call nature. That's a different thing. Something not accessible. If we talk about nature, usually we refer to something that has not been created by humans, but in speaking about nature, we create it.
Yes, yeah, for sure, yeah.
I also have a question, because I wondered, there's another concept of moving through landscape, which is not waltzing, because it's not connected to work. It's the pilgrimage,
yes,
in fact. And I just wondered if your activities are not much more connected to pilgrimage in a broader sense, if you keep out the religious context and the source of going on a pilgrimage as guilt or whatsoever, what in medieval times caused leaving your home to go to a faraway place to get a sort of emotional religious healing. But stepping out of your everyday situation and having a certain concept of humbleness in some ways, in relation to what you are going to meet and experience. And this is what you talk about when you talk about your own approach to nature, to exchanging with plants and to trying to find an understanding of what interacts with you, although you don't have the same language. So I just wonder, yeah, maybe that's also a relevant point.
For me, I mean, I've been asked that, of course, because that's also my age. I would go on a pilgrimage, so I'm not. I mean, first of all, I'm not. But I am also not, because for me, it's about the economy. And this is why, I mean, this is still in the making. I'm not done with this. And I will probably have to prolong it because I got kicked out so badly of the walking, at least. And I don't know if I will be able to make the distance because I'm also teaching and all of these things. But it's about the economy. And that's how it's linked to the crafts. It's not that I'm on a trip to finding myself in the walking. I'm on a trip to find out about the metabolisms that create economies that differ from the way we use the land now. And I think that's why it's a craft and why it's trying to build a craft in order to exactly do this, because I think we are lacking this. We are lacking this. We don't know. And we need to find new ways. And it's just, yes, I'm a trained philosopher, but somehow I started to work in theater because for me, it's just not my way. I have total respect and I love philosophy and I love theory, but I need to do something in the world that is going away from the pure reflection. And this is what I'm looking for. And then I think, of course, it's very much, you know, like I'm part of this school too. And the whole thinking about the crafts and what is it and the art, it's like it informed me. And conversations with my students informed me. So I owe the idea of the FERMATE to Jakob Ripp, who is here. I owe the idea to create a costume to Diana Berndt, who is also a student. And I owe a lot of stuff to a lot of you who I'm not mentioning because I forgot that we had the conversation. You know, this is how it goes. This is also how I understand myself as a teacher. I'm not the person who knows and gives something, but we're creating this together. And this happens or it doesn't. And that's the same actually. And so it's a different thing. It's not, I don't have like this thing of needing to get rid of something, or I don't know. I could also go on a pilgrimage at a certain point. It's not that I find that a stupid idea to do it, but I think it's just what I'm doing here. I'm really trying to also coin in the book a different understanding of economy that comes from a different understanding of the soil and how we are part of this Earth's body, which we are, which is why plastic is nature, because we produce plastic and we're produced by Earth. We are just produced by Earth. So we're nature and we can produce plastic. So plastic is nature. Yeah. So that's my political statement, which I told my daughter, 11 years old, not to tell her teachers at school. Yeah. Yeah. Is that an answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, more questions. If not, also good, right? We can call it a day. Thank you so much for coming.